get back to the road trips, the birthday parties, and gnarly barrels, movies with friends, dance parties, and date nights. But right now, we've still got work to do. Because we know how important electricity is to all of us, and we're taking that very seriously. While we're all waiting to get back to who and what we love, we're here for you with programs and services that can help during this difficult period. In the meantime, we'll be out here doing our job so that you can keep doing yours.
Hi, my name is Kristen Camulia, and it is my honor to serve as chairwoman of the Orange County Taxpayers Association Board of Directors. On behalf of the entire board, I would like to welcome you to our Save California virtual event. The Orange County Taxpayers Association was founded in 1986 by a group of Orange County taxpayers and business owners, and is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization with a solid history of working to support taxpayer issues. OC Tax is the only county-wide organization whose exclusive focus is to represent taxpayers on governmental tax and spending policy issues. We educate taxpayers on a variety of public policy issues, including taxes, regulations, public employee pensions, legislation, and we continue to fight and preserve and protect historic Proposition 13. Our mission is to ensure that taxes and tax-supported programs are fair, understandable, cost-effective, and good for the economy. Once again, we thank you for tuning in today, and we hope you enjoy the program.
Thank you, Kristen. Good afternoon. My name is Carolyn Cavecci, and I have been proud to serve as the President and CEO of the Orange County Taxpayers Association for the past 8 years. On today's Save California program, we'll be discussing how the upcoming Proposition 15 initiative on the November ballot will drastically impact local businesses and could forever change the future of life here in California. Prop 15, also known as split roll, is a $10 to $12 billion tax increase each year on California businesses through the removal of their Prop 13 protections. Since 1978, Proposition 13 has protected every Californian's wallet, home, and business from overtaxation. And it all started when Howard Jarvis started a grassroots campaign that led to the largest voter-driven victory in California history. Proposition 13 is the largest protection California has against overtaxation by the government. What it did was set a 1% tax rate on your initial property tax bill and limited the amount the government could increase your property tax by each year to 2%. And that protection has remained for over 40 years. It doesn't matter if you bought your home in 1978 or yesterday, you are protected by Prop 13. Before Prop 13 was passed, the average property tax rate in California was around 2.6%. Now what that means is without Prop 13, a $500,000 home would go from paying $5,000 a year in property taxes, 1%, to over $13,000 every year. That's an astronomical difference. Could you afford to pay an extra $8,000 a year in property taxes? And that's just the initial rate. Without the 2% cap, who knows how fast our property tax bill would grow every year. I know I couldn't afford to stay in my home. Prop 13 protections are critical for the prosperity of our communities and the ability to live and thrive in California. Here's a short video that explains a little more about Prop 13 and what it's done for Californians.
We have proven that here in California that we, the people, not the politicians, are still the boss.
In the early 70s, property values were skyrocketing, and so were property taxes, which on average were doubling every 4 years. In some areas, reassessments caused property values to double or even triple from one year to the next. People were losing their homes because they couldn't pay their growing tax bill. In 1977, California was sitting on a $5 billion budget surplus, but the politicians refused to pass a property tax relief bill. Howard Jarvis, a California businessman, had been trying to work with the California legislators, but then shifted his focus and began going straight to the voters through an initiative called Proposition 13. It was America's first tax revolution since tea was tipped in Boston Harbor. Although Howard Jarvis passed away in 1986, the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association continues to do their important work to this day. Prop 13 has saved taxpayers over $500 billion over the past 4 decades. That's $60,000 per California family in tax savings. But the bureaucrats and politicians in Sacramento never stop biding their time, waiting for the moment to strip away those protections in an effort to raise taxes on Californians. Now, 42 years later, they're ready to strike. Few will be surprised to learn that California ranks at or near the top when it comes to high taxes. Personal income tax, unemployment tax, corporate tax, sales tax, gas tax. California has some of the highest numbers in the nation. The only savior we have is property tax, where only 15 other states have a lower property tax rate than California, and that's due to Prop 13.
If you're a business, non-corporation, you have to pay the highest tax rate because you're paying that personal income tax rate. That may go even higher. In addition to that, you have regulatory controls that are much more stringent in California, more costly in California than other areas. So businesses are already moving out of the state. The one good thing they have going for them is that when they compare perhaps the real estate tax, the commercial property tax rate that they may be paying in California versus Texas, let's say, where most of these businesses are moving, it's a bit lower. So there's one positive thing going for them and going for California, and now that may be taken away from us.
The Sacramento politicians put Prop 15 on the ballot this November in an effort to strip away Prop 13 protections on California businesses. This proposition will raise the price of everything you buy, from gas to coffee to diapers. If Prop 15 passes, the cost of everything in California will go up.
There's not a reason our business is based in California, so we can really take this and move it anywhere we want it to. And we're really getting to the point where we just keep getting pushed and to the limit there, and it's very frustrating. And this might be the nail that kind of seals the coffin.
We have a new revolution against the arrogant politicians and insensitive bureaucrats whose philosophy of tax, spend, elect and elect and elect is bankrupting we, the American people, and the time has come to put a stop. We, the taxpayers, have spoken. We have made clear our goals. Now, we are watching you.
From 1978 to 2020, not much has changed. The government continues to use taxpayers as a way to fix their mismanagement of the state's finances. Now more than ever, Californians across the state must band together to protect Prop 13 and the most recent attack against that protection, the upcoming Proposition 15 initiative. Right now, politicians are coming after our neighborhood businesses, but if they succeed with Prop 15, their next step will be our homes. But before we talk more about Prop 15, I wanted to clear up a few misconceptions you might be hearing about Proposition 13. The most common myth is that only old people are protected by Prop 13. Whether you purchased your property in 1978 or yesterday, you are protected by Prop 13. Prop 13 caps your initial property tax rate at 1% of the purchase price and ensures that government cannot increase your property tax more than 2% annually after you buy your home. Another myth is that renters are not protected by Prop 13. The fact property taxes are passed on from the property owner to the renter, which means when you increase the cost to the owner, that increase is really going to be paid by the renter. You think rents are high now? How much more can you afford to pay in rent every month? And here's another myth. Homeowners carry the largest burden for property taxes statewide. In reality, ever since Prop 13 was passed, businesses and non-homeowner occupied properties have always paid a higher percentage of California's property tax base. Right now, only 37% of property tax collected statewide comes from homeowners. And that is exactly why the state is now coming after our local neighborhood businesses. And you've probably heard, some think there is a loophole that keeps businesses from paying their fair share. Yeah, no, there is no loophole. Residential and business properties have always been taxed the same. And that's not Prop 13, it's in our state constitution. And by the way, it's the state legislature who defined when properties needed to be reassessed to increase property taxes, not Prop 13. And if they wanted to, they could change that. Lastly, there are many who think an increased cost to business will not affect them. And this couldn't be more wrong. That higher cost will be passed directly down to us, the consumer. And small businesses will be hit the hardest as they don't have out-of-state facilities to help pick up the higher cost to do business. If Prop 15 passes, businesses in California will have two choices, either raise prices or lay off workers, neither of which is going to be good for the residents and taxpayers of California. We are honored to have renowned economist and President Emeritus of Chapman University, Dr. Jim Doty, with us today to discuss how Prop 15 and the removal of Prop 13 protections could change the future of California. Please watch this short video and we'll be right back.
Prop 13 has a significant impact on Chapman University and even my career. When it was passed in 1978, many economists and prognosticators nationally and even in the state suggested that Prop 13 would have a very negative impact on California, reducing revenues and leading to problems in the state relating to its budget. We were at Chapman starting a Chapman econometric model, and our econometric model way back then suggested otherwise, that indeed it would have a very positive impact on the economy. And that's when we decided to go public with our forecast, because we thought that was important information to share with the community. And because, in fact, in retrospect, it did have a very positive impact after it was passed, that led to significant support for our forecast, which is now going on its 43rd year. And it all started with Prop 13 and our forecast that Prop 13 would significantly and positively affect the California economy. And it has. Now we're dealing with a situation where Prop 13 may be dismantled as a result of Prop 15, and I'm strongly opposed to it. One of the few areas in terms of selling the state, selling jobs, selling businesses to locate in California is the fact that we have marginally lower real estate taxes. Almost average, maybe a little lower, as compared to our corporate tax, personal unemployment tax, personal income tax, sales taxes, which are all much higher. In fact, when you put all of those taxes together, turns out that California, in a state tax index put out by the U.S. Tax Foundation, is the second highest taxed state. New Jersey number 1, California number 2, and New York number 3. Interestingly, the two states that have lost the most people over the last 7 years, New Jersey, California, and New York. In fact, California's lost 750,000 people in terms of population. New York is the only state that's lost more, with 1 million. Who are the states that have gained population? Texas, Florida, Nevada. Texas has gained about 700,000 people. Florida has gained about 500,000 people. Interestingly enough, our analysis at Chapman has shown that higher tax states lose population, low tax states gain population. The one thing we have going for us is Prop 13. By placing higher taxes, property taxes on commercial business property, what will happen is not only will that further place California as a higher tax state, but we'll lose jobs, we'll lose people. People vote with their feet, and if businesses have to pay higher taxes, they'll be inclined to look at Nevada, Texas, Arizona, Florida, states that have no corporate tax, states that have no personal income tax, and now possibly even lower real estate taxes. Please, for California's sake, for the sake of the students graduating from Chapman University that need jobs, please vote against Prop 15.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, my name is Carolyn Cavecchi, and we're here to discuss how the upcoming 2020 Prop 15 ballot initiative will devastate the future of businesses here in California. As one of the highest tax states in the nation, California also has the highest cost of living next to Hawaii. Prop 15 will be the tipping point, though, and California will pass Hawaii to take the #1 spot if Prop 15 is passed. By removing Prop 13 protections from our local businesses, the cost of living will increase even further as the cost of everything you buy, everything you enjoy, goes up. Proposition 15 will have broad, far-reaching impacts throughout the state. Not only will the business community be hit hard, but California's farming community will also be facing the largest property tax increase in California's history on the heels of a national pandemic. Here's a little more about Prop 15 and the impacts it will have throughout our state.
In the midst of an unprecedented economic crisis, with millions of Californians searching for work, special interest groups in Sacramento are pushing for the highest property tax increase in California's history. Proposition 15 is a $10 to $12 billion a year tax on all California businesses, large and small, and is the beginning of weakening and then eliminating historic Prop 13. If passed, Prop 15 will do one of two things: either completely decimate thousands of businesses by forcing them to close their doors through overtaxation, or it will increase the cost of everything you buy. After all, when you increase taxes on the business community, those taxes are passed on to you, the consumer. Proposition 15 will be so detrimental to the business community, it even contains what we call the Get Out of California clause, which allows small businesses up to 4 years to close shop and move their business out of state. And it's not just businesses who will be affected. Prop 15 will also impact California's illustrious agricultural community by increasing taxes on fruit trees, grapevines, dairies, barns, and more. Our farmers have already struggled with fires and drought, and now Sacramento wants to tax their crops. In addition to farming, low-income families will also be hit hard. Californians already pay the highest income, sales, and gas taxes in the nation. If passed, Prop 15 will drive the cost of living even higher by skyrocketing the cost of goods and services. When you're struggling to get by, having to pay more for milk, coffee, diapers, bread, and more makes a big difference. Supporters of Prop 15 claim this tax increase will go to our local schools. But don't be fooled. Governor Newsom's draft 2021 fiscal year budget allocates over $84 billion for K-12 education, an all-time record high. And there is no guarantee in Proposition 15 that funds will even make it into a classroom. Over $900 million has already been allocated for educator recruitment and training. Plus, education is actually projected to receive less than 30% of these funds. In fact, schools are last in line to receive Prop 15 revenue. Instead of managing the billions of dollars Californians already pay in taxes and making the same hard decisions Californians have had to make during COVID-19, Governor Newsom would rather decimate the business community through extreme taxation. Meanwhile, Governor Newsom has maintained expensive pet projects and government pork, including $4.2 billion for a non-existent bullet train and providing up to 2% raises for retired government officials in the middle of the pandemic. Prop 15 is not about the schools. It's about government greed and the inability to manage your taxpayer money. If passed, Prop 15 will cause fewer jobs and reduce wages when millions of Californians are on unemployment, will magnify the housing crisis, will raise prices for goods and services, and will leave homeowners vulnerable to losing their Prop 13 protection. For too long, we've watched our once golden state dim darker and darker with overtaxation and government mismanagement. Sacramento has lost the respect of Californians. This election can't be about political agendas, but about what's best for the future of California. For many local businesses, COVID-19 was just too much to keep their doors open. Don't let Prop 15 be the final blow. Protect our neighborhood businesses. Protect our families. Vote no on Prop 15.
Whenever California politicians need money, it always seems to be about education. And yet schools are at the end of the line, the last possible recipients for any revenue that will come from Prop 15, with no assurances or guarantees that classrooms will see a dime. And let's not forget, even with declining enrollment for this year's 2021 fiscal year budget, it's the highest in California's history, with $82 billion allocated for K through 12 education. Recently, I spoke to a county assessor about the logistics of implementing Prop 15, and he didn't even know where to start. I've been telling a lot of my friends that if your kids are looking for a job and Prop 15 is passed, have them go get their assessor's license. The magnitude of red tape and staffing it will take to implement Prop 15 is staggering. In fact, if passed, the estimate for counties to implement Prop 15 is over $1 billion in the first 3 years alone. And let's not forget, 40 years ago, county assessors were going to jail for corruption because establishing property values were completely up to the discretion of the assessor, and some were accepting bribes and payoffs to lower a property's value. If we think this won't happen again, we've yet to learn from the mistake of our past. Why would we want to return to a pre-1970s system that didn't work then? Recently, I sat down with former state finance director and Congressman Tom Campbell to discuss Prop 15 a little further. We're so pleased to have with us now Tom Campbell, former state finance director, former state senator, former congressman, and now with Chapman University. And Tom, your work as a state finance director in the early 2000s, I believe. Talk about Prop 13, though, because you like me, are kind of a nerd about the finance numbers in the state of California and what's happening. So Prop 13, how important has historic Prop 13 passed in 1978, how important has that been for the economy and for the business community in California?
There's very little more important than that. And the reason is that the tax situation for businesses in California does not make it an attractive state to locate.
No.
And so when I was finance director, it was my privilege to make the pitch to companies that were contemplating coming to California or Arizona or Texas or Washington State, why they should come to California. And it was a hard argument to make because our taxes are so high. But Prop 13, passed in 1978, was the one beacon of hope. And it was a great comparative advantage. When a company decides to come to California, many times it's going to design build. Sometimes they acquire a property that's already been built, but most of the time they are considering, at least the large corporations, maybe they will build a facility. This was particularly true in the growth of Silicon Valley when wafer fabrication plants were being built. And so they have to cost out what happens to the business as the tax on property is assessed year in, year out. In every other state but us, it was a risk.
Yeah.
Because you might build a building and you might understand its cost and the assessment might be 1%. And next year the state might say, well, it's 1.5%. And the state runs into a revenue shortfall 2 years later and it might be 2%. That was not possible once Prop 13 passed in California. And the key here is that Prop 13 applied to business property as well as residential property. I think most people think of Prop 13 as a way to save older folks from having to sell their home just to pay the taxes on it, to allow folks of my age to stay in our homes. But that's important as can be. But the business side is the focus that I had when I was finance director and when I was state senator and congressman. So that's at risk if we undo Prop 13. And that's what's going to be on the ballot this November.
Yeah, I tell people who think, oh, business communities aren't going to bother me all that much. I always ask people about, going to the stores. What do you think the trickle down is going to be for people who want to, just go in and buy their milk and their diapers or get their nails done or take their dogs to the vet? If they do split commercial property off, what kind of effect do you think that's going to have on small businesses?
Devastating. And the reason is that small businesses in general, you can take sector by sector, but in general, operate on a very narrow margin. Certainly ma and pa grocery stores, very narrow margin. Gasoline retailers, very narrow margin. So if you have a very narrow margin and you suddenly have an increase in real estate taxes, which you have to pay every year, you don't have any place to go except to the consumer. So think of it with gasoline prices in California, already
the worst,
the highest in the country. Now, if you figure in the increased real estate tax that the corner gasoline station owner will have to pass along to consumers, it's devastating to all of us who depend on the gas for our cars. So California, we know, very car dependent, very individual transportation dependent, and it goes directly to the consumer if the cost of real estate taxes is increased.
Well, Prop 15 is the split roll initiative that will split the commercial property off from the regular property tax rolls and do it differently. That's on the ballot in November. So I'm assuming you're not in favor of Prop 15.
Oh, very much against it. Very much against it. Why can't we just leave something good? Wouldn't it be great if California said to the country and the world, come to California, build a building, and you will know exactly how much your taxes will be 20 years from now, 30 years from now. That was a great message from 1978 to 2020.
Yeah.
And now we're going to confuse the message.
Yeah.
I can't understand why. If you ask what other sources of revenue there are, I can give you what the alternatives are. We certainly have business tax, we have income tax, we have the sales tax. I think California's revenue sources are poorly balanced.
Completely agree.
And what we need is a more steady, less up and down spike. We are an up and down spike revenue state because so much depends on the personal income tax. And we have no preference for capital gains. So if the market does well, the revenue shoots up. If the market does not, it shoots down. There's many alternatives is my point. But don't take away the one comparative advantage we have when dealing with California versus locating a business in another state.
Yeah, completely agree. OC Tax is completely agrees. Tom, thank you so much for speaking with us
My
today.
pleasure, and thank you and all OC Tax for what you do.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to sit down with Congressman Campbell and learn from his years of experience when it comes to California's finances. Before we continue, this event would not have been possible without the support of our members and donors who have continued to support OC Tax throughout the years. Thank you to Southern California Edison, the Orange County Automobile Dealers Association, and Rancho Mission Viejo for your continued support of OC Tax. We are pleased to premiere our opposed Proposition 15 public service announcement to you this afternoon. Please watch, and we will be back in a few minutes.
As the impacts of COVID-19 rippled throughout the country, the business community suffered catastrophic losses. Unable to survive, many were forced to close their doors for good. Every day, hundreds of businesses continue to struggle as unemployment numbers remain staggering. In just 4 months, Orange County's unemployment rose by 354% from January to April of 2020. Millions of Californians continued to search for work that wasn't there, and hundreds of businesses desperately tried to stay open. If we thought COVID was bad, just wait. Prop 15 will destroy any hope of future prosperity for our once golden state. Prop 15, also known as split roll, will increase taxes on California businesses by $10 to $12 billion each year by removing their Prop 13 protections. As the largest tax increase in California's history, Prop 15 will hit every Californian, as the cost of everything you buy, everything you enjoy, will go up. After all, as taxes increase, both the business and you, the consumer, pay the difference. Your favorite coffee shops, restaurants, salons will all start to close, and the government will collect more of your money. California is our home. For too long, we've watched greedy and detached politicians turn our state into a shell of what it once was. It's up to us to take it back and save California.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, my name is Carolyn Cavecchi, and we're discussing how the upcoming 2020 Prop 15 ballot initiative will devastate the future of California through a $10 to $12 billion a year tax increase on local businesses. You know, whenever we talk about businesses, there's always this misconception of cold conference rooms and wealthy billionaires. But that's not what this is about. We're talking about the local coffee shop who makes your favorite vanilla latte, or the neighborhood restaurant with the best happy hour, or your favorite barber. Those are the businesses that will be impacted by Prop 15. We've reached out to several local county business owners to discuss how Prop 15 will impact their business. Let's hear what they have to say.
I've been here 16 years, and I'm paying $6,000 a month in common area maintenance. Could you imagine what it's going to cost if they reassess this building to fair market value? It could be another $6,000 to $10,000 more a month in rent. There's no way I can, sustain that. Definitely it's going to create some inflation. Obviously, with minimum wage increasing next year and the following year, it's going to be a challenge for people to stay in business. We're going to have to raise prices and reduce labor and find a way. And it's definitely going to just hit the small person. I mean, we have over 70 employees. We're proud of that. We're invested in our community. We do a lot of outreach, community outreach, a lot of charity work. We're trying to make a difference and provide value in our community. We're trying to bring a world-class experience to our town. And again, with COVID, with the increase of costs with labor and all the products, the meat and produce and et cetera, the margins are so slim. So this again will be just a crushing blow to all of us.
It's really the tenants, and if you look at the tenant base, the leases that are drawn, every one of them has a clause in the lease that says in the event the property taxes, specifically property taxes, in the event property taxes go up, you, Mr. Tenant, are paying your pro rata share of that increase. So if you're in 50% of the building, you're going to take 50% of that increase, and I'm going to sock it to you. Where is that guy going to get his money from? Is he supposed to take less profit now? Isn't this whole thing supposed to help the small business owner? I don't know how this does. I don't know how that raising property taxes on commercial property does that.
If you have a shoe repair shop and your rent triples, what are you going to do with the cost of the services you provide? You're going to up the price. If you are a local supermarket and your rent goes up because of the tax hit, what are you going to do with all of the products in your store that you sell? You're going to have to up the prices to make up for your tax hit. It's simple as that. It's trickle down. Everything trickles down and the consumer's on the bottom. We already have the highest taxes and are one of the most expensive states in the country to do business in. It's not a business-friendly state, and this will, in my opinion, send a multitude of businesses out of state. They'll just pack up and leave. If Prop 15 passes, every single product that I buy and every single service that I use is going to go up substantially in cost, in price. So it doesn't matter if it's toothpaste or furniture or my trip to the doctor or to the veterinarian. All of those, the cost of all of those things is going to go up because those people have businesses and their tax hit will have gone up.
So I'm just trying to get my customers comfortable in coming back into a salon, yet alone I wouldn't want to have to raise prices on them on top of it. So I'm definitely no on 15. It's one more punch in the gut when you're just barely crawling out of it, absolutely. It wouldn't make sense to even be able to keep doing what I do for a living, yeah.
You know, we're still recovering from this economic crisis, which has been really devastating on small businesses. That would devastate our business for sure, because the taxes would be raised. We would not be able to afford it. We'd have to pass the costs on to our stylists that are renting from us. They would have to pass it on to their clients. Everything would just escalate a lot. The property management companies are not going to absorb all these costs. They're going to pass them on to their tenants. The people, most businesses, I'd say anywhere between 70% are renting. Their small businesses rent. So they're going to increase that cost, I believe.
Well, I mean, you know, obviously one of your biggest cost, you know, is your rent, you know, as far as, you know, trying to be able to stay in a place like that. You know, your other costs are big time where, you know, is, you know, employee salaries, you know, so your payroll kind of gets you. So it's like, if you can't balance those two out, that really will kick you really fast, you know, as far as not being able to do certain things or shutting down programs. You know, when we went through it, I you know, we didn't know if we were going to make it, you know, and it's like, you know, by the grace of God and just trying to bend and, you know, overcome, adapt, improvise, you know, try to figure out different things. We made it through. Now it's like this next challenge. It's like the next fight's coming, you know. So, you know, just got to try to deal with it, and hopefully, you know, people vote the right way, you know, and we don't end up in the same situation as a lot of other places. And I know of gyms, you know, that have already picked up and left, you know, and other small businesses, you know, that they cannot do it. And, you know, I get emails almost daily now that, hey, you know, I have equipment if you want to, you know, because we're leaving. I'm like, wow, it's difficult. So, I mean, I can see they're already scared, so they're just going to go.
The business probably gets 2 to 3 phone calls a month from business bureaus and chambers of commerce located outside of California. We've never really taken those phone calls seriously. If Proposition 15 does pass, we will start to take those seriously. What California may gain in tax, they're potentially going to lose in jobs. There's not a reason our business is based in California, so we can really take this and move it anywhere we want it to. And we're really getting to the point where we just keep getting pushed and you know, to the limit there, and it's very frustrating. And this might be the nail that kind of seals the coffin.
It just breaks my heart to see these people who have dedicated their lives to building their business from the ground up, only to have it destroyed by bad government policies. I mean, these businesses faced COVID-19, found creative solutions, adhered to the sporadic orders from the governor, only to potentially face more undeserved hardship from our state officials through Prop 15. They are not going to be able to handle much more. It's now up to the voters to make sure we keep our local neighborhood businesses thriving. You know, anyone who enjoys and calls Southern California home knows Wahoo's Fish Tacos. I was so honored to sit down with one of the founders, Wing Lam, and hear the incredible history of his business and how regulations and taxes in California have affected his restaurants, employees, and the cost of a taco. I know you're going to enjoy our conversation. I'm here today with Wing Lam, founder of an iconic Southern California restaurant chain, Wahoo's Fish Taco. Thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you you helping us out and talking with us today. And I'm curious, so why Wahoo's? Why the restaurant business? When did you start this incredible venture?
Well, back when we were kids growing up in Southern California, we immigrated to Southern California in 1975 from Brazil, of all places. So we're full-blooded Chinese, but my parents opened one of the first Chinese restaurants in South America back in the early 50s, and we ended up in Southern California. And we went to high school with most of the kids that ended up working in the action sports industry. So everybody joked about having a place to hang out after surfing. And my brothers and I got together because we're the only ones that have the experience to do it. And that's how it was started in 1988.
Wow. See, I hung out at Bob's Big Boy, so this would have been a lot more fun, I think, to be able to be here.
Yeah.
So how many restaurants do you have in Southern California, and are you in other regions as well?
We have about 30 in Southern California, and we got another 30 in 5 other states, and 1 in Japan.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
5 other states.
Yes.
I didn't know that. How many employees then? That's a big employee.
We got roughly about 1,500 employees company-wide.
Okay, that's amazing. So besides food, obviously, you're passionate about food then. So
Yes.
you started the business, it sounds like, to create a place for your friends to hang out in, but why fish tacos? Why this?
The first rite of passage when we were kids was the first surfing road trip that anybody did was down to Mexico. And when you were surfing in Mexico at the beaches, most of the taco stands made fish tacos. So it was one of those where everybody dreamed of like a Hawaiian plate lunch if you went to Hawaii, and a fish taco from the beaches in Mexico. So we said, hey, we're from Brazil. Brazilian food isn't really that popular yet. We're still gonna have some signature items, like our white rice and black beans are from Brazil. But the rest is basically a little bit of Hawaiian and a lot of Mexico.
And you were really kind of the first to have this type of food, right, in
Yes.
Southern California?
Yeah. There's other places that do fish tacos, but not as their mainstay. But also we were the first to grill it, make it a little bit healthier.
So besides food, what else are you passionate about? Surfing, I'm gonna guess.
I surfed this morning with my brother
Really,
Ed.
really. So why surfing?
It's kind of like doing yoga. You're there on your own, the clock, there's no start and finish time. You're there when you're there, and you just make the most of it, and you're there with the environment. So you're one with nature.
Yeah, it's probably very calming.
Very calming.
I grew up in Southern California, Orange County actually, and I have to say hardly ever surf. So we catamaran, we sail.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is kind of the same.
The same thing, you're on the
Not
water.
quite though, you're on the water,
Yeah.
so that's wonderful. So obviously the surfing maybe overlaps a little bit with the food, but you know, how do you combine your two passions? Is there a combination?
Well, pretty much. Well, we started like feeding all the surfers, and then all the surfers hang out with the skateboarders, the BMX riders, the motocross guys, the mountain bike guys. So pretty much, if you're living in Southern California and you're active, you want to refuel your body with something good. That's kind of how we just kind of fell into. So now we do football, baseball, and all that. But the major sports wasn't really our main thing, because the minor sports, the ones that were kind of on the outside, was more of our bucket. So we just kind of hung out with all the outcasts. And all of a sudden, all these guys end up on TV with the X Games and all that. So now they're part of the Olympics. So it's fun for us to say, hey, I know that kid, I know that athlete. And because we've all kind of grown up together, helping each other out. And we're the fuel that kind of keeps everybody going.
You know, it's amazing. You really take in how you grew up and what you did and what you were passionate about, and you created quite an incredible business around that, which is amazing. Not everybody gets to be able to do that. So.
No. And the thing is, like looking at your shoes,
Yeah.
right? The Vans is another iconic Orange County brand. Same thing. They took something that, hey, they liked, and all of a sudden it becomes like a mainstay in almost everybody's life around the world. It's unbelievable what they've done.
Good for you. This what really is an incredible story. But you're also a businessman, and
yes.
we are in the middle of an unprecedented pandemic.
Yes.
Which is it's been hard on every business, but the restaurant business seemed to, I don't know, really take a hit. It's a huge employee base in our region. So how has Wahoo's been dealing with the pandemic, and kind of walk me through from what about probably March, I would imagine.
So pretty much literally mid-March, I think it was that Wednesday when it was announced that the arenas were closing. That was the beginning of literally the cliff, right? Up until that moment, everything seems to, we're okay. The rest of the country is having these issues, but we're okay. Because we're going into spring, we're not in the winter anymore. Nobody thought anything. But as soon as the Lakers and the Ducks and the Kings announced that they were shutting the arenas down, everybody goes, whoa, because now there's no more indoor activity. And that we kind of got roped into it. Because they're like, well, dining in is not really a necessity, right? So going to a supermarket was. So all of a sudden we just kind of got all put in that bucket. And then all of a sudden they says, well, but we're going to allow you to do takeout. Well, the damage was already done.
Right.
Because you don't need to be indoors.
Right.
So that was the major. So you saw us doing 100% of our business and our best year ever, literally losing 85% of our sales in less than 2 days. And all of a sudden we're like, okay, it's survival time. We're sitting here in Orange, one of the other stores that was getting ready to get shut down a couple of weeks later. So we have to figure out how to get people in. And trust me, when the news is telling you not to go indoors, it's really hard to get people to come out. And you saw the traffic. I mean, the freeways were empty. Everything was empty. Everybody was staying shelter. Be safe, don't go out, don't mingle, don't socialize, any of that. So we have to figure it out. And one of the things that I was able to do in order to not only take care of our customers that were working in nursing homes, hospitals, the police department, I started making deliveries to them. And at the same time, I was able to keep our stores from closing.
That's great.
Because we still have 6 stores that are closed because the airports, the colleges, and the sports venues, they're still closed.
Okay, so you had to close stores down.
So there's 6 of them still. We lost 2 stores in the pandemic in LA because LA is still crazy. I mean, between the riots and all the protests, it is crazy in LA still, right? So we were getting ready to lose 4 more in Orange County, and that's when I said, okay, what do we need to do? We need to get sales. And I just couldn't get people in, so I decided to go out to deliver. So luckily, with a group of friends of ours, we created a group called the California Love Drop. So my buddies Charles, Wendy, Eric, Brad, we all kind of came together, put our pennies together because there were no other charity events going on. Says, well, why don't we use this as a way to thank all the frontliners? We'll kind of cover our costs while we're doing it.
Keep your employees
working.
working.
Keep our employees working. And it all worked. So we've been doing it for 6 months, and we thought it would have ended a month or 2 into it. And it just kept going because we would reopen, the governor would change his mind, we would shut down. So it's been this yo-yo. We're a little bit, closer to about 65%, but we're a long ways from paying rent. That's the big thing. Because we need to be at about 80% before we can make any payments. So our landlords have been really good at working with us. I'm sure that they would like to see some money, but we're not in a position because if we give them, we don't have anything to pay our employees.
Wow. So, so this Operation Love Drop, where are you dropping food to? I have heard you. We had a drop here in the city of Orange at our police department the other day. So, talk to us about that.
So, the California Love Drop, we basically go to hospitals, police departments, fire departments. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to get to the frontliners of the fire department. But there's an issue because there's security, there's a lot of issues. So we're working with different groups and the fire department, LA, Riverside, to get to them. Because we would love to be able to bring them a hot meal, some snacks, some drinks, whatever we can. But there's, the security issue because we don't want to get too close to the fires. But that's where they're all at.
That's absolutely amazing. And I think the fact that you were able to keep your employees going is just incredible. So do you own a lot of the actual properties that your stores are on, or do you lease? Is it a combination?
It's a combination. The majority of them are leases because real estate in Orange County is so expensive already. So we, the store that we're in Orange, we own this one.
Right. And Kendall, I want to say, I think this is probably your best store in the game, but that's just me.
Yes, we love the Orange location. It's an old historical building, so it's close to a lot of the community. People remember this building from, the history and all the different, stuff that has happened in the city. So we've been able to maintain the charm of it while making it functional. So it works for us. We have a similar building in Laguna Beach where, again, it's a historical building. We have one on Main Street in Huntington Beach as well. So we were able to buy some of I call it the freestanding buildings, because whoever owned it before, their kids saw it as a great opportunity for us to cash out. So they say, hey, so we probably have about 5 locations that we own out of the 30.
Okay. Yeah. I know you're aware then, as not only a leasee, but as a property owner, historic Prop 13 passed in 1978 really was an incredible stabilizer for property taxes in the state of California. And I know both for homeowners and for commercial properties. And I always like to tell people, they've always been taxed the same, commercial and residential, from our state constitution. They've always been taxed the same. There's no difference. But there's a ballot initiative this November, Prop 15, which is looking to make sure that commercial property owners are not protected anymore by Prop 13. How is that going to affect you as a business owner here in California?
The major impact is the cost basis is going to go from whenever the property was purchased at, whether it was 10 years ago or 100 years ago, to the current base, which means that all of that expense is going to get passed on to us as tenants or ultimately the consumer. And it could cause a number of things. Is if we can't pass it, the big issue right now is the employees, because there's basically only a couple of variables that we have. And employees one of them, right? And our biggest. So if we have to pay more for food, if we have to pay more for rent, pay more for insurance in order to be in business, there's only one thing that's got to go, and that's the employees. So that's one of the major things that people are not thinking about, because they're like, oh my God, so the people that bought the property, why should they be penalized for making a smart investment? Because remember, some of these beach properties 50 years ago, they were giving it away as part of a purchase of a piece of property in LA. Oh, we're going to give you this piece in Laguna, this piece because nobody wanted to live here.
Wow.
Right? So people forget that. So if the people that made those smart decisions or took the risk then, or even somebody who bought a property now, right? Because I'm talking about friends that own hotels along the beach. Remember, that whole property south of Huntington Beach, it was basically a golf course forever, Driftwood. And you're going to penalize that guy for sitting on the property for 50 years and then turning it into hotels, which generate a huge amount of revenue for the city. Now you're going to penalize him? And they spent $1 billion doing all that, right? So again, it's not fair, because if you were born now, you're like, well, why should these families benefit? It goes, well, they were the ones that were smart enough. Because if you look back 10, 20, 50, 100 years ago, nobody really wanted this. It was LA, Hollywood. This was all kind of like an afterthought. It was farmland, it was oranges, right? Nobody cared. So now you're going to penalize us, so not only the businesses, but the people that own them, the people that lease them. Why should we pay more? Because all of a sudden it makes it that much harder to do business in California. Because all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, your tacos went from $3 to $5.
Well, and I was going to say, so you only have a couple things you can do. You can close stores if it gets too expensive. You can get rid of employees.
Yes.
And they're saying Prop 15 is going to cause unemployment to rise already.
Yes.
Or you can raise your prices.
Exactly.
So, there will be a point where it won't be worth it because people will stop coming in.
Yes. Yeah, because like I said, we've had some leases in LA, for instance, that we had to walk away from because the cost literally became untouchable. Because I'm like, I would have to sell a taco for $10 just to stay in business. And it didn't make any sense. So we said, hey, thank you. And the people that told us to, we got plenty of people that will rent from us. Good luck for them right now, because they're all sitting empty. Because they're like, they picked the worst time to kick a tenant now that had been there for 10 years and 20 years in some cases.
I'm always surprised when I talk to people about Prop 15. What we're hearing on commercials now is this is just going to affect large corporations. You hear it, stop the loophole for large corporations. And when I've talked to people, I've said, it's going to affect businesses, and they'll say, well, that's okay, I don't own my own business, I don't go into commercial properties, and I start listing them out. And when I get to restaurants, usually that's when someone will go, what do you mean restaurants?
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, yes, restaurants, nail salons, gyms, your vets, liquor stores, movie theaters.
Yes.
Concert vehicles.
Yeah.
People don't quite realize that we're talking about Oahu's Fish Taco and taking your family out to a dinner before a game or a movie theater when we get to go back and do those things again.
Yeah, they have no idea. They think of the Disneylands, the Irvine Company, the South Coast Plaza goes. But remember, when South Coast Plaza gets hit, guess what's going to happen to all the tenants?
It's a lot of, and that's a lot of jobs.
Yes, it's a lot of jobs. So they have to think past that. And again, I'm sorry that your parents, your grandparents weren't smart enough to buy that piece of property when they had the opportunity, right? And they bought it somewhere else. And that's life. Nobody knew then. I mean, if I knew what we know now, we would have bought those houses on the beach for $50,000.
I'd be in Balboa now.
Exactly.
Well, and candidly, I tell people who, for a residential, complain about that, they're still protected under Prop 13. Because the average property tax rate in 1978 was almost 3 times it is now.
Yes.
It's like 2.67.
Yeah.
So I'll say on a $500,000 property, you're paying $5,000 now.
Yeah.
It would be $15,000 without Prop 13.
Yeah.
So it's tough. Also, Prop 15 is going to affect farmers, even though they say they're not. It will affect the food chain because dairies and processing plants and vineyards and all of the buildings where those properties are affected. So I'm curious, from somebody who uses a lot of food in your business, I mean, are you looking, where do you buy a lot of your stuff from now? Are you looking potentially to buy out of California then?
Right
if
now,
the prices go up?
Due to seasonality, you can only buy fresh produce from California for part of the year. And part of it comes from Florida, part of it comes from Texas and Florida. So it's just a seasonality thing on the fresh stuff. But on the like the proteins and all that, you're talking about like New Zealand, Australia. There's a lot of other countries that can produce. I mean, right now, the huge crop out of Mexico is avocados. And now it's coming out of Chile as well. Because again, the biggest cost to making an avocado is water.
Yeah. It's a lot of water, But
it's a lot of water. So guess what? Wherever water is cheap, that's where avocados are going to come from. So it becomes this supply and demand. So again, you have this huge resource that's already expensive water. Now you increase your base on the land, there's not going to be any avocado growers left in California either. So these are all the things that nobody thinks about. And they just complain that, oh my God, an avocado is $3. Well, guess what? Right? We don't have any water here.
It's come a ways. So if Prop 15 passes, how do you see that affecting? I'm assuming, Oahu's Fish Taco is very popular. It's a great product. I'm sure you could expand probably as fast as you wanted to. Expanding though in California, let's talk about the business climate in California and Prop 15. How do you see your expansion plans here?
California is already a very, I call it, attorney-friendly state. Very, very difficult. There's just too many, there's a lot of red tape, right? State taxes. I mean, a store in Colorado or a store in Texas does much better than a store here because they don't have to deal with all the taxes and also the workman's comp thing. So now all of a sudden you increase the tax base. I'm like, hey, you know what? Let's just look at it. A store that does $1 million here in gross and a store in Vegas that does $1 million, I'm going to take home an additional 10% by just going there.
Wow.
Why would I want to be here? And again, a big reason we're all here is we love the coast.
Right.
We love the ocean. Well, now guess what? There's these man-made surf pools. It makes it really, really hard because the argument is like my friends that come back from Texas, from Waco.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, the wave here is unbelievable. It's if you close your eyes, you wouldn't even know you were not at a beach.
Well, the weather will only take us so far in California, is what I say, and then none of us are going to be able to afford to live here. So I'm assuming you're a no on Prop 15.
I am a definitely no on Prop 15.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. It was just really nice to see you again, and it was nice to actually get a background and feel for really, like I said before, an iconic Southern California restaurant. So
well, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. And we'll have more right after this.
Out here, your curiosity is your search engine, and scrolling is replaced by wandering and wondering. Unplug and reconnect on the reserve at Rancho Mission Viejo, one of the largest protected habitats in all of Southern California. A nearly 21,000-acre classroom with more than 75 nature programs open to the public and field trips enjoyed by over 4,500 students every year. Schedule a tour today.
Thank you again, Rancho Mission Viejo, for your continued support of OC Tax. Every year, Orange County Taxpayers Association is honored to present our Roses and Radishes Awards Gala. And although this year, with the COVID pandemic, we were pleased to be able to switch to this virtual event, it really wouldn't be an OC Tax annual event without a Making Tracks with OC Tax video. And because this has been such an unusual year for us all, of course we needed to hear what the word on the street was about 2020 and all that it entails.
Well, I don't know. That looks infected. You ought to see a doctor about. Oh, hi. I'm Jim Leach with Making Tracks for OC Tax. You know, 2020 has not been good to us. Between the coronavirus and the social unrest and the economic issues and, well, who can forget the murder hornets? It's just been a horrible year. So this year we've gone out to people to ask about what it is about 2020 that would make them just want to pull the covers over their head and go back to sleep until 2021.
Donald Trump still being in the house? I don't know. Still being president.
I think the craziest thing has just been coronavirus. I mean, like, if someone told me this would happen a year ago, I think that would never happen.
I think that, like, all of the natural disasters happening, like the fires in California and then also 2 hurricanes hit the East Coast, right, recently.
School ending early.
Yeah, because we just graduated, like, senior year of high school. Yeah. So that was kind of, like, hard to process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The world ended.
The world ended. I can see that happening.
It wouldn't surprise me if Donald Trump became president again.
I just feel like I can't be surprised anymore.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like we're never going to go back to normal. An asteroid is expected to hit Earth near Election Day, I think. It's kind of crazy, yeah.
I think the talking about the murderous hornets was really crazy.
The murder hornets, I feel like that happened for a week and then we never heard about it again.
You know, many of us know the song, Wake Me When September Ends. Well, here we are at the end of September, and I'm giving 2020 game, set, and match. Wake me when 2020 ends, and I'll be the first in line to celebrate the incoming 2021. For Making Tracks with OC Tax, I'm Jim Leach.
Welcome back. If you're just joining us, my name is Carolyn Cavecchi, and we're discussing how the upcoming 2020 Prop 15 ballot initiative will devastate the future of California through a $10 to $12 billion a year property tax increase on local businesses, the highest property tax increase in California's history. And don't be fooled, businesses will not be able to sustain a property tax increase of this size. It will be passed on to the consumer. I'd like everyone to take 10 seconds to really think about every business you visited this week. Really take the time to think about it. In fact, go ahead and leave those in the comments section. For me, I went out to eat, I took my dogs to the vet, I went to the grocery store, I got my car washed, I got gasoline, and I went to a local nursery to buy plants. Now think about the cost of everything you bought. So when we talk about the costs of goods and services going up, it's not just one single thing. It's every place you've touched, every day, every week, every month. And if every single place has to increase their costs, what is that going to do to your bank account at the end of the month? We spoke with local residents who are concerned about what these price increases could do to their and their families' quality of life. Let's listen.
Well, the immediate answer is that it's going to increase my cost. It's going to increase my grocery cost. It's got to, because all the other costs are going to go up, and businesses aren't in business to lose money. So if their costs go up, it's not even economics, it's just arithmetic, okay? If their costs go up, they have a couple choices, and their choices are either to increase the cost to me, or lay off employees, or leave the state. Those are the three choices. A big company like Stater Brothers, they're probably not going to leave the state, okay? But they may lay off employees, which means my shopping experience isn't as good because I have to chase down somebody to help me find something, and it's going to increase the cost. So all of a sudden, you know, the stuff that I buy all the time, milk, bread, vegetables, meat, all that stuff, those costs are going to go up because their costs are going up. So it's not just the small businesses that are going to be affected, even medium-sized businesses like this grocery store, that's going to increase the cost to me, which is going to make it hard for my family. We have to put food on the table for my family too.
Everything is going to go up. I mean, from buying anything on Amazon to going into Target, going anywhere where we buy diapers or whatever for our family, every single thing that we buy is going to go up in price. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's going to trickle down from the landlord to the consumer. It's inevitably going to happen. No landlord is going to come out and say, oh, we'll just eat the cost. It's going to trickle down, and 90% of those businesses who are teetering on the edge are going to either go out of business or move out of California.
And I feel like California is already one of the more, if not the most expensive state to live in, to purchase, you know, goods and products in. It's really going to eliminate the middle class, where it's going to be the very, very upper 2% and everybody else. I remember even, 10 years ago when everybody was saying, oh, I want to buy a home, the recession, it's starting to bounce back. California is so expensive as it is that people were finally able to purchase homes, but then your property taxes and then everything else that goes with it, that you just can't afford it. So even if you make, let's say, a six-figure salary, six-figure income, that's not enough anymore, because you have to factor in everything else that goes with just being alive and being a human and living in Southern California.
As a new dad, a new parent, it's a scary time right now. With the passage of Prop 15, I'm concerned about the price of gas and diapers, all the basics going up. Prop 15 affects everybody. You look at small businesses and how hard they're hurt right now. If their cost increase, if their taxes go up, I'm concerned that as a resident, the cost of goods, the basics that we survive on, are going to go up too.
As a single mother, you want to give your children the best life that you can possibly have, better than a life that you have had yourself in your childhood. In order to do that, you would love for them to have different kinds of life experiences and go through sports and all these other things that children love to do. And all that costs money. It costs money to buy team jerseys and pom-poms. It costs money to join a swim team. With a higher tax rate that's going to get trickled down to consumers like myself, like other single mothers, we're all going to feel that. We're already having so much money being taken out of our bank accounts as it is from normal living expenses, for your mortgage, for your rent, for groceries, for everything else under the sun that you can possibly think of, for some kind of emergency or disaster in your life that occurred and now someone has to go to the hospital. That's an expense. Everything in life costs money, and we're all going to feel it no matter what. It doesn't just affect businesses, it affects everyone.
This strip mall has been here for a long time. It's as long as I can remember, and I've lived in this part of town all my life. So this strip mall has been here for a long time. Here's the thing, these small businesses, they're all families. They're all family owned. They're not corporates. They're not big corporations. They're all small family owned. So these are the people, these are the businesses that, sponsor the Little League teams, sponsor the bowling leagues, take out an ad in the school yearbook. That's what these businesses add to the community, okay? It's not just money. It's personal value, and all these businesses are going to be affected by that. And if they have to close, that's a huge quality of life issue, okay? Because these are the people that support our community. Every single one of these small businesses, that's what supports our community. That's really important to me.
Welcome back. Every year, the Orange County Taxpayers Association honors an individual or an organization for their legacy of service to the taxpayers. This year, we are so pleased to announce that the California Taxpayers Association is the OC Tax 2020 Royalty Award honoree. Please join me in welcoming the CEO and President of CalTax, Rob Gutierrez. Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Hi, Carolyn.
Good. Good afternoon. It's so nice to have you with us today. Thank you. Well, let's talk about CalTax. When was it formed, and what was its specific purpose originally?
Yeah, so we were founded in 1926 by the business community in San Francisco, and our original founders included the Auto Club of California, BOMA, Sun-Made Raisin Growers, and California Trucking Association. And we were established to really be the watchdog on California public finances, to oppose unnecessary taxation and promote sound tax policy. And that's really been our organizational mission for the past 94 years.
Well, you must have been one of the first taxpayers organizations in the state.
We were, and we actually, I know we founded a lot of local chapters in the early days, and some of those became independent local chapters and local associations too.
Great. So over the years, how has the organization changed?
Yeah, I would say we started off really looking at city and county finances, public finances. So one of our very first research projects was on the collapse of the St. Francis Dam in Los Angeles, and we've still got that report in our library. But much of the early work we did on local government finances, they started doing on their own. So at the time, we sponsored legislation to require counties to put together budgets. That wasn't a requirement way back in the day. And so that was one thing that they started doing. And so in 1966, we moved our headquarters to Sacramento, and that's when we took on more state policies and began a much more robust advocacy program with lobbyists here in town.
Wow. Well, we've seen a lot of changes in California over that time as well. What do you think the most drastic change has been?
I think the importance of the role California plays in the United States economy. We're now more of a nation state, the most populous state in the nation for the time being. Yeah. And I would say as the 5th largest economy in the world, people want to know what tax policy is going to shape California and how that will affect companies' ability to do business. We occasionally have bills crop up in the legislature, and I'll be getting calls from embassies throughout the world. It's quite amazing how many people watch what California does.
Wow. Well, what do you think your most important function is as a taxpayer organization?
So I would say our most important function is to keep an eye on what bills are proposed and introduced in the legislature. Just this past year, there were 3,033 introduced in the first year of the 2019-20 session and 2,390 bills introduced in the second year of the 2-year session. And we read through every single one of those and analyze the fiscal impact and determine if there's a importance for taxpayers. And so we let our members know, as well as the broader Sacramento business community.
Well, I can tell you as a local taxpayer CEO, it has been incredible to have the input from CalTax that we have. So thank you very much. What kind of bills did we see this last session in the legislature?
Oh boy, this year was a wild one. We saw $82.8 billion in higher taxes and fees proposed just in this year alone. And just to name off a few, AB 2712 established universal basic income, but it established a value added tax to pay for that. That's $53.3 billion. We saw a suspension of the NOL deduction and a limit of utilization for business tax credits. That's $9.2 billion. We saw a wealth tax, which would have taxed taxpayers' worldwide net assets, $7.5 billion. We saw AB 1253, which would have imposed a retroactive personal income tax increase, bringing our top rate, which is already high, to 16.8%. We saw AB 398, which would have imposed a headcount tax, bringing in another $2.1 billion. And then we saw utility user taxes, recycling taxes, charges on broadband, and healthcare fees. All of this in a pandemic recession when Californians are struggling and unemployment's at record levels.
They can't seem to help themselves, can they?
It's unfortunate that we see all this at a time when so many people are hurting.
Wow. Well, let's talk about historic Proposition 13 passed in 1978. What do you think the biggest positive Prop 13 brought?
So Prop 13 was a landmark policy, and no one thought it would work at the time, and it has worked for the past 40 years and then some. The property tax struggle began in 1962 and 1963 in that time frame, and there were series of bills since then up until 1978 to try to solve the problem. The legislature capped property tax rates and capped how much property taxes can increase. But that was not the real problem with the property tax structure. And Prop 13 solved that by establishing an acquisition value assessment system. And that's really what has brought certainty to taxpayers and meant that property taxes are affordable at a time when property values in California continue to increase. You know, when you look at the state's overall tax structure, we rank near the bottom, 48 out of 50 in most kind of comparisons of state by state. And the one silver lining of the state tax structure is the property tax, and that's because of Prop 13.
Well, they want to bring us back to the 1960s again for commercial properties with Prop 15 that's coming out. What do you think the biggest misconception about Prop 15 is?
So this really is the worst possible tax change, and it would be the most devastating tax change in more than a generation or more. And I think the biggest misconception we're hearing about Prop 15 is that this does not apply to small business. That couldn't be farther than the truth. Prop 15 really hits small business because even though they may not own the land, most commercial leases include they're on a triple net lease agreement. And what that means is that a standard commercial lease says that the tenant will take over any increase in property taxes. And that's small business. And that's an $11.5 billion tax increase on small business at a time when we're seeing people struggle to keep their doors open.
So do you think this is the biggest threat to taxpayers right now, or is there something else out there?
Absolutely. It's the number one threat to taxpayers. We've seen it introduced over and over and over again for the past 40 years, but it's never made it to the ballot. It's never been this far along in the process. And on November 3rd, hopefully the voters will reject it and kill it for good. But it is about the long-term affordability of the state and how do we continue to keep California affordable for our children and our future generations. But from an employer standpoint, why would you want to continue to invest in this state if we're going to continue to make it more expensive? And
agree.
Yeah.
Well, every year the Orange County Taxpayers Association gives out our Royalty Award, which is given to an individual or organization for their legacy of service to the taxpayers. And we are honored this year to name the California Taxpayers Association as our 2020 Royalty Award honoree. And congratulations, Rob, to you and to your entire team at the California Taxpayers Association. We have this award for you. We're going to be getting it out as soon as we can. Again, congratulations very much.
Well, thank you so much. It's a true honor. And, you know, Carolyn, you're a true leader in Orange County, and we really enjoy working with you and all the good work that you do for the Orange County taxpayers. You know, the Orange County delegation here in Sacramento is vital to work with, and they continue to grow in influence, and your relationships with these elected officials is pivotal. And we, you call anytime we need a assisting hand, and it's been extremely helpful. So thank you.
Great, thank you and congratulations. Well, that's all we have time for today. Thank you to everyone who joined us for our Save California event. In the next week, you'll be getting your 2020 November ballot. And if you couldn't tell already, we're going to ask that you vote no on Prop 15. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about OC Tax, please visit our website at octax.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram through our handle at OC Taxpayers Again. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to Brian, Kelsey, and the entire crew at Communications Lab for helping put this event on, and we will see you next time.